Hey everyone, Chris Albert here. Today we're going to talk about importing an Azure SQL Database into Terraform. The reason we're talking about this today is because if you have existing resources up in your Azure environment and you want to start managing them with Terraform, you need to first import them. Today we're going to use the standard import command that Terraform provides. There are other utilities you can use to make this process a little easier. One of the most popular ones being Terraformer. This is provided by Google. We'll cover that in a later video. All right, let's get into it. So in Azure, we have a resource group, we have a SQL server, and we have a database. We want to start managing these resources with Terraform. So in order to do that, first we have to start a new Terraform project and create our main.tf file. So let's hop into VS Code. I made a new folder called Azure Import, and I'm going to create my main.tf file. All right, so here in main.tf, we want to start off with the Azure provider. There we go. Next up, we just need to configure the provider. Now, first thing we want to do is define the resource group. So I've started off with a resource block, identified an Azure resource group, gave it a name, and I gave it the definition that my resource group has up in the Azure portal. So its name is rg-terraform, and it's in the East US 2 region. So now that we have the resource block defined, we want to define the resources that live within our resource group. First up being the SQL Server. So we're going to follow the same pattern, and we are just going to create the resource and give it the same definition that it has in the Azure portal. And then we're going to go ahead and do the same exact thing for the database. Now we have a main TF file, and it's got all the resources defined that we want Terraform to start managing. Next up, let's run a Terraform init to get our project ready to go. Once the terminal is open, you want to run a Terraform init. All right, so Terraform's going out, it's grabbing our provider, it's loading all the resources that we need. Now that the project is ready to go, we need to quickly log into our Azure environment. So we're going to AZ login. This will pop up a web page for you, and it'll ask you to authenticate into your Azure account. Once it's done, you should have a block here saying it was successful. One important thing to note here is that we don't yet have a Terraform state file. The state file is where Terraform keeps all of its information about your existing infrastructure. So if we go out and we try to run a Terraform plan, Terraform is going to reach out to Azure, and it's going to want to create all of these resources that we've defined here. We already have these in our Azure environment, so we don't want Terraform to create them. So this is where importing comes in handy. In the plan that Terraform has produced, we can see that it wants to create all these resources from scratch. It has no idea that these exist out there. So how do we tell Terraform that these resources exist? Easy. So let's use the Terraform import command to import our resource group first. Let's clear the terminal out. And here we're just going to construct the command. We're going to walk through it step by step. First up is Azure import. In the next part of the command, we need the name that we've given it in our Terraform file, along with the type of resource that we're trying to import. So here we're going to import our resource group first. So I have Azure RM resource group.rg Terraform. This matches exactly what I have up here in my main.tf file. Next up, we need to point it to the resource group in the Azure portal. And to do that, we just steal part of the URL string right out of the Azure portal to make it nice and easy. So I'm getting that from right up here in the Azure portal. We can see resource, subscriptions, my subscription ID, resource groups, RG Terraform, overview. So we are just going to steal this piece here, and we will put that in our terminal. Once we run that, Terraform knows exactly where to look for that resource group, and it's going to run the import command. And while it's running, you'll notice that a Terraform state file gets created inside of our directory. So right now, Terraform is reaching out to Azure, and it's pulling in the information about that resource group into our state file. The resource group has been successfully imported into our state file. We can now open that up and we can see all the information about our resource group. Now we need to repeat the same exact process for our SQL Server and our database. So let's just do them in order and import our server first. So the same idea, Terraform import, then we're going to use the MS SQL server resource and SQL-server-terraform for the name. Again, just stealing that right from the main.tf file. And we're following the same format for grabbing our pointer in the Azure portal. If we go back to the Azure portal, we click into the SQL Server, the URL updates, and we can grab exactly what we need up here to put into the terminal. So we're going to run this command, and it's again going to reach out to Azure, and it's going to import that SQL Server into our TF state file. All right, it has successfully imported the server into our Terraform state. Now let's move on to the database. So we're going to follow the same exact pattern. We're going to use an MS SQL Database resource, give it the same name from the Terraform file, and then follow the same exact pattern for getting the database URL. Go into the database resource in the portal, and we go up into the URL and we copy out what we need for the terminal. All right. Now we let Terraform import that last resource into our state file, and we should be good to go. All right, and now that that resource is imported, we have successfully updated our state file with all the resources that we want to manage with Terraform. So let's go ahead and run a Terraform plan and make sure that it doesn't want to change anything in our Azure environment. It should have all of the appropriate resources in the state file, so that way it does not want to make any changes. It should see the environment for what it is and be fine with what that configuration is. Perfect. Terraform has reached out to Azure, compared it against what it has in its state file, sees that there should be no changes made. We have successfully imported all of our resources, and now Terraform is managing our SQL Server and our database. Thanks, everybody. Have a good one.